United States, J.D. Vance.
Please have a seat. We're going to be talking for a long time. I heard you guys love speeches, so I've got about 90 minutes of prepared remarks here. I want to thank you all for being here, especially. There we go. Thank you. USA, 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 USA. So I want to thank our guardians, our airmen, and everyone else for the warm reception in a very, very cold place. I think it's probably the coldest place I've ever been, but you guys managed to do a great job despite the weather. I want to bring a message for President Trump. He's grateful for your service, grateful for what you do up here, and just wanted me to tell you that he's proud of you and he thinks about you. And of course, the same is true for everybody that's flanking me up here. We're thrilled to be here because the mission that you guys do is so important for the United States. It's important for our national security. And today, everybody that I met to a person was professional, was kind, was knowledgeable, and was dedicated to our country. You're a great credit to the United States of America, even though you are very, very far from home. I met some Texans and some Floridians today, and I thought to myself, man, you guys have really signed up for tough duty here in Greenland, but it's a beautiful place. It's a striking place, a very harsh place. The Colonel showed me around, but a very beautiful place. Even in right now, I guess we're still, at least here in Greenland, in the heart of what is winter, because winter, I guess, lasts about 9 months here in Greenland. So I want to thank our reporters for following us around today and covering what we're doing. We'll take some questions from the reporters, but before we did that, I wanted to give some of my special guests an opportunity to say a few words. So we, of course, are thrilled to be joined by Juliet, our National Security Advisor's wife, and by my wife, our Second Lady, Usha. And flanking me here on my left is Chris Ryder, Secretary of Energy, Mike Walter, National Security Advisor, and my dear friend, Senator Mike Lee from the great state of Utah, who I joked earlier, I told Mike I'd give him a ride to Utah, and we ended up in Greenland. But I want to, because each of them care about this territory and care about the mission of the American military here in Greenland, for various reasons, touching each of the areas that they focus on, I thought it would be worth hearing from each of them for a little while. So, Chris, if you would say a few words about the importance of energy. Thanks, Chris. Here we are. So thank you, Mike. And let me say just a couple of other things, and then we'll take some questions from the reporters. So, number one, I think a lot of Americans wonder, why does Greenland matter so much? Why does the mission of this base matter so much to the American people? And I learned a lot about that today myself. Of course, you can read about it in a book, but I saw it up close and personal. And if, God forbid, to my fellow Americans, if a missile was fired from an enemy country or an enemy submarine into the United States, it is the people here before us who would give notice to our brave men and women further south in the United States to let people know what was coming and, God willing, to try to shoot it down and prepare for it. That's one of the things that we do at installations like this. We know that Russia and China and other nations are taking an extraordinary interest in Arctic passageways, in Arctic naval routes, and indeed in the minerals of the Arctic territories. We need to ensure that America is leading in the Arctic, because we know that if America doesn't, other nations will fill the gap where we fall behind. So what you guys do is so critically important. I think a lot of Americans, certainly I, didn't realize it fully until President Trump started talking about the importance of our Arctic mission, about building upon it and ensuring that America can lead in the Arctic for the next generation. And now I want to talk about, of course, the interaction and what Denmark, I think, has done, and sometimes in partnership with us, but let's be honest, what Denmark over the last 20 years has failed to do in some cases, because we know that unfortunately this place, this base, the surrounding area is less secure than it was 30, 40 years ago, because some of our allies haven't kept up. As China and Russia have taken greater and greater interest in Greenland, in this base, in the activities of the brave Americans right here, we know that too often our allies in Europe have not kept pace. They haven't kept pace with military spending, and Denmark has not kept pace in devoting the resources necessary to keep this base, to keep our troops, and in my view, to keep the people of Greenland safe from a lot of very aggressive incursions from Russia, from China, and from other nations. Now, President Trump, as he says all the time, and as a lot of people recognize, is a president of peace. We want to have good relationships with everybody. That includes, even to the extent possible, the Chinese and the Russians. But part of having good relations is showing your strength when you have to. And unfortunately, the story of Greenland over the past 20 years when it comes to security is that we've underinvested in the infrastructure, we've underinvested in the security architecture, and we've underinvested in the brave men and women who are doing a very hard job, as Mike said, to keep all of us safe. That has to change. Now, when I pointed out a couple of weeks ago that in some ways, with all due respect to our Danish allies, they had not kept pace, there was a lot of criticism from Denmark, a lot of attacks at the Trump administration, at the president, at me, at others in our administration for saying the obvious, which is that Denmark hasn't done a good job at keeping Greenland safe. And one of the things I heard was, well, what about the many Danes who lost their lives in the war on terror fighting alongside the United States? Well, look, we obviously honor the sacrifice of our Danish friends in the war on terror 20 years ago, just as, for example, the French honor the sacrifice of Americans in Normandy 80 years ago. But recognizing that there are important security partnerships in the past does not mean that we can't have disagreements with allies in the present about how to preserve our shared security for the future. And that's what this is about. There is no amount of bullying, no amount of obfuscating, no amount of confusing the issue. Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change. And because it hasn't changed, this is why President Trump's policy in Greenland is what it is. It's consistent with the first Trump administration, where you saw significant investments in Arctic security, and it will continue over the next 4 years under President Trump's leadership. And let me finally, before I kick it over to the media, make one comment about the people of Greenland. The colonel here, the base commander, who came here first as a second lieutenant, and I guess, Colonel, this is your second duty station here, and we're proud of you and proud of all of you guys who are serving and helping keep us safe. I heard a lot about the respect that our American troops show for the local Greenlandic population, the way that we make and create shelter for hunters and dog slitters, the way that we found ways to turn over traditional tribal land to some of the local populations in order to ensure that they're able to live in accordance with their values. We respect, as the President said in his State of the Union address, we respect the self-determination of Greenlanders. We believe in the self-determination of the population of the people of Greenland. And our argument is very simple. It is not with the people of Greenland, who I think are incredible and have an incredible opportunity here. Our argument really is with the leadership of Denmark, which is underinvested in Greenland and underinvested in its security architecture. That simply must change. It is the policy of the United States that will change, and I'm proud to be able to stand here with so many brave Americans to better understand the security mission and better understand what you guys do each and every day. For that, I'm grateful for your service. I'm even more grateful. I love you guys. I'm proud of you guys, and President Trump stands behind you and will for the remainder of his administration. Thank you all. God bless you. All right, now we'll take a few questions. Both of you guys have your hands up. Whoever can go first. Well, are there immediate plans to expand our military presence? No, but are there general objectives that we want to accomplish that will certainly require us investing more resources, investing in additional military, icebreakers, investing in additional naval ships that will have a greater presence in Greenland? Absolutely. And we know that's necessary because we know, as Mike talked about, and certainly I talked about, there has been an expansion of the security footprint and the security interest of Russia and China. They're doing what they believe is in their interest. The United States must do what I know is in our interest, which is to make sure that Greenland is safe. If Greenland doesn't have self-determination, if the people of Greenland have their future controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, it's not going to make their lives better off, and most importantly, it's going to make American and world national security, world security, much, much weaker. We in some ways need to wake up. We need to wake up from a failed 40-year consensus that said that we could ignore the encroachment of powerful countries as they expand their ambitions. We can't just bury our head in the sand, or in Greenland, bury our head in the snow and pretend that the Chinese are not interested in this very large landmass. We know that they are. They've taken steps to put Greenland in ridiculous debt traps to invest and exploit the resources here. And we know that they're sending a lot of military resources here. Yes, over the medium term, the United States will meet that challenge. We will put our own resources here. We already have a lot of great resources here, but we know we're going to have to do more to counter some of the nations that we know that we're competitive with. Sure. Well, the president said we have to have Greenland, and I think that we do have to be more serious about the security of Greenland. We can't just ignore this place. We can't just ignore the president's desires, but most importantly, we can't ignore what I said earlier, which is the Russian and Chinese encroachment in Greenland. We have to do more. Now, what the president said in his State of the Union address, and he was very clear about this, is we respect the self-determination of the people of Greenland, but my argument again to them is I think that you'd be a lot better coming under the United States security umbrella than you have been under Denmark's security umbrella. Because what Denmark's security umbrella has meant is effectively they've passed it all off to brave Americans and hope that we would pick up the tab. We're simply saying to the people of Greenland, when the president says we've got to have Greenland, he's saying this island is not safe. A lot of people are interested in it. A lot of people are making a play. We know that America cares about the security of this island for the sake of the people of Greenland, but also for the sake of the national security interests of the United States of America. So our message is very simple. Yes, the people of Greenland are going to have self-determination. We hope that they choose to partner with the United States because we're the only nation on earth that will respect their sovereignty and respect their security, because their security is very much our security, as these brave Americans show. Well, I didn't quite say that. I think that's a slight bit misunderstanding of what I said, but we've talked, of course, in the American media about Signalgate, as I called it, for the past week. And here's what I told the president and the entire national security team, is that yes, it is in the interest of the United States of America to preserve navigation. Yes, it is in the interest of the United States to kill terrorists who are preventing navigation in the Red Sea, but we got to make sure that we do it right. We have to be careful. We have to make sure the timing is right. And of course, what that leak revealed, I think, is a private communication between the president's senior advisors about how best to prepare the American people for what we all thought we had to do, about the right timing of when we should do something, and of course, surfacing the strategic questions that we needed to decide and brief the president on so that he could ultimately make the decision about what we would do. What I saw in that signal chat, and of course what I've seen in the president's senior national security team, is that sometimes we all agree and sometimes we all disagree, but it's important that we all have an honest conversation amongst ourselves and with the president of the United States about what we think is in the best interest of the national security of the United States of America. I support the president's decision to strike the Houthis. I always supported the president's decision to strike the Houthis, and I support the national security team having the argument about how best to serve the American people. Good. Well, I don't want to get too specific, but yes, we know that the Chinese are very, very interested in this island. We've seen some of the economic pressures that they've tried to place on Greenland. We know that they're increasingly engaging in military training and military interest. Certainly, they've started to describe themselves as a near Arctic power, And I think part of that is justifying taking a further interest in Greenland and some of the surrounding territories. So we've seen very strong evidence that both the Chinese and the Russians are interested in Greenland. And why wouldn't they be interested in Greenland? It's a beautiful place. It has incredible people. Its geographic placement makes it very important for the national security of the United States, but for world security. What we have to recognize is that if the Chinese and the Russians are going to pursue their national interests, we need a president who's going to pursue the American national interest, and that means ensuring that Greenland is safe.